Have you ever had an employee leave and suddenly realized that nobody in your organization knew what systems they had access to? Maybe there was a specific software subscription that nobody remembered, a client relationship that was tied to that user's inbox, or a laptop that took weeks to get back. Most people think that those problems start when somebody resigns or is terminated, but these problems actually start all the way back on that employee's very first day. Today, I'm going to be talking about why onboarding and offboarding are really two sides of the same process. The common shortcuts that create expensive problems later, and I'm also going to talk about a few practical steps that you can take in your organization to make sure that your next employee departure is organized instead of chaotic. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Kinnett. I'm CEO and founder of Eternal Networks. And here at Eternal Networks, we believe in empowering businesses and individuals with the knowledge that they need to succeed. So every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I know I'm late today, I go live on our socials to discuss different topics around technology, cybersecurity, AI, with the goal of empowering others. At Eternal Networks, we're dedicated to creating safe and secure environments for businesses and people to thrive in doing what they love and in helping to educate others on the latest technology and cybersecurity risks. That's a big part of our mission. I'll make sure to leave some time at the end of the live stream today to answer any questions from the audience. So if you have any, throw them in the comments in the chat, and I will get to those at the end. Well, all introductions aside, let's go ahead and move on to our topic for the day. When somebody gives notice that they're leaving, most companies immediately start thinking about offboarding. Who needs to disable accounts? Who collects the laptop, the cell phone? Who takes over any client communication? But the reality is that a well-organized offboarding should only take about an hour to an hour and a half from an IT perspective. If it takes days or weeks, then the real problem usually isn't the resignation or the employee leaving. It's everything that's happened months or even years earlier. Every shortcut taken during onboarding eventually shows up during offboarding. The departure simply exposes problems that have been quietly building since day one. In identity management, Microsoft refers to this as the joiner, mover, leaver lifecycle. The joiner phase is when somebody starts, they're joining your organization. The mover phase covers role changes or promotions or shifts within the organizational structure. And the leaver phase happens when somebody exits the company or somebody leaves your organization. And these aren't separate events. They're one continuous life cycle. And if the joiner phase isn't done correctly, the leaver phase becomes far more complicated than it needs to be. There's really lots of things that we could go over. I could probably spend well over an hour talking about this, but today I'm going to focus on four common mistakes that I see that can lead to offboarding issues. And I say onboarding mistakes, but some of these are things that need to be established during onboarding, but could happen at any time during that employee's life cycle. The first mistake is employees creating their own accounts. One of the biggest issues that we see is what we call shadow IT, or employees signing up for software on their own. Maybe it's a design platform, project management tool, note-taking app, some AI chatbot, right? That's designed to help them to work more efficiently. It seems harmless at the time, and it's done with the best intentions of them being a better employee and being able to provide more value. The problem is that those accounts often end up belonging to one person, the one person that signed up for it. They're the only one who knows the password. Sometimes they're the only ones that even know that the account exists. And months later, when they leave, you're trying to recover access. Or maybe you only discover the account because another subscription charge hits the company credit card. The better approach is to provision applications through a centralized identity system using single sign-on whenever possible, to centrally manage access to that application. and to ensure that IT and management are aware of the tools being used and that they're being used properly. Mistake number 2, temporary personal devices becoming permanent business devices. This is something that I see all the time, and it's letting the new employee use their personal laptop just until the company device arrives. Sounds reasonable, right? We want them to get to work. And in many cases, it starts with the best intentions. The problem is that temporary solutions have a habit of becoming permanent. Company email gets added to their laptop. Files get downloaded. Applications are installed. Passwords get saved in the browser. And before long, that personal device is a big part of your business environment. And when that employee leaves, you're left hoping that they've removed all of the company data themselves. And that's not really a good security strategy. It's much better to issue company-owned devices on day one and enroll them in a mobile device management solution. If personal devices are necessary, and many times they are, then managed app access should be configured and should be the minimum standard so that company data can be protected and removed without affecting the employee's personal information. Bring your own device policies are necessary as well. And all this starts on day one, making sure there's an understanding of what personal devices can be used and to make sure that they're configured properly. All right, mistake number 3, shared logins. This is another shortcut that often creates problems later on. A company wants to save money by purchasing one license instead of several. So multiple employees use the same username and password. It seems like a little compromise until someone leaves. And suddenly you can't remove that individual person's access without affecting everyone else that's sharing it. Sometimes the departing employee is the only one who has access to it or who knows the password for that. Maybe they're the ones that created the account and they were sharing it with others and it's tied to their email. Per user licensing may cost you a little bit more upfront, but it gives you better accountability, better security, and much cleaner offboarding when it is time for someone to move on. All right, our final mistake, that's mistake number 4, client relationships that live in one inbox. And this is especially common in service businesses or agencies or consulting firms. One employee becomes the primary point of contact for a client or multiple clients. And over time, every conversation, preference, project update, everything ends up living inside that one individual's inbox. And when they leave, all of that history stays in their inbox. Even if you recover the mailbox or share it or move it to another one and give individuals access, that transition often is awkward for both your team and the client. Instead, client communication should live in a shared system whenever possible. Shared mailboxes, CRM platforms, documented notes, all of these help to ensure that the relationship belongs to the business, not just to the individual that's currently the one talking to the client. All right, maybe you're listening to these items, these steps that I've talked about, and you're thinking, oh, that's great for future hires, but I'm not hiring anybody and my team is already in place. What do I do? Well, good news is you don't have to start over. You don't have to fire everybody and say, hey, we're going to rehire everybody to do this right. You can start now, and you can dramatically improve your onboarding and offboarding process just by auditing what you already have and then filling in the gaps before the next employee leaves. And here's a few areas that I would recommend reviewing first. Start by reviewing the last 3 months of every business credit card statement and look for recurring software as a service subscriptions. Every recurring software subscription should have a clear owner and a documented process for managing access. Make a list, document this, right? And ask yourself, who created this account or this subscription? Is it tied to a company email or to a personal email? Who knows the login credentials? What are the login credentials? Could somebody else access this subscription if that employee left tomorrow. You'll often uncover subscriptions that nobody remembers purchasing, accounts with no backup administrator, or licenses that you're still paying for long after the original user has left. There's some quick and easy cost savings there. All right. The next step in your journey to improve this, what I would suggest is to create a device register. Build a simple inventory of every device used for work. And in that register or that documentation, include who the device is assigned to, whether it's company owned or personal, whether it's been enrolled in the company's device management, what company data it can access, and I would say also what company data is stored on it. There's lots of other things that you probably should include: device name, serial number, when it was purchased, all this stuff. But that's not the focus of this. The purpose of this is to know what equipment and data your business is responsible for protecting, and knowing what devices you have and who owns them and who uses them. That's a huge step in identifying that. All right, the next tip would be to evaluate your client communication and move it into a shared system if possible. If an important customer relationship depends entirely on one employee's inbox or their cell phone, you've created some unnecessary risk for your organization. So start moving those conversations into shared mailboxes or a CRM, so that anybody stepping into that role has the context that they need, the history of communication with that client, with that organization. Clients should experience continuity, even when your team changes. Also, your IT provider should be involved long before somebody leaves. One thing I always encourage business owners to ask is, what does your IT provider actually do when you hire someone? And often when I ask that question, the answer is, oh, they don't do too much. They set up their email account, maybe a couple of other minor things. They only get involved once an employee resigns. Or that's really when it gets more involved, right? And by then, IT is trying to clean up problems that have existed for months or years. A proactive IT provider should be involved on day one. They should be asking questions and helping to create the onboarding and offboarding process. They should be setting up the user's identity, provisioning applications through single sign-on, enrolling devices in management and ensuring that they're secure and protected, and documenting the systems that the employee has access to. When that foundation is in place, offboarding becomes a pretty straightforward checklist instead of a stressful investigation into what was there that we need to now clean up or fix or block. All right, if you're not sure where to begin and all this, I provided some steps. Don't worry. You don't really need to focus on everything this week and do it. You can break it down into a simple 60-day plan to improve your onboarding and offboarding processes. The first week, second week, weeks 1 and 2, I would suggest start auditing your SaaS subscriptions. Look at those credit card bills and your checking account statements, and identify accounts that are ongoing software subscriptions, and especially the ones that rely on a single employee. The reason I suggest starting there is there might be some cost savings, right? Identify the stuff that you're not using in the process. The next step, I would say, over weeks 3 and 4, work on building or updating your device register, your documentation, and confirm every company-owned device is enrolled in management. Review any personal devices that are accessing company resources and make sure that they're still valid, right? That there are systems that should be accessing things. That leads us to weeks 5 and 6, where you can audit your client communication and move any high-value client relationships into a shared mailbox or your CRM so that the business, not an individual employee, owns the history. And that leads us to weeks 7 and 8, where you document the onboarding process that you wish you'd always had from the beginning, and then use it as a standard for every future hire and begin applying those same principles to your existing team. Most of this is not a technology project. It's an operational one. a spreadsheet, a few conversations with your team, and the help of a proactive IT provider can eliminate many of the headaches that businesses experience when employees eventually move on. If you're listening to this and thinking, well, I'm not really sure how prepared we are, that's okay. You're not alone. Many businesses don't realize there's gaps in their onboarding and offboarding until they're dealing with it, right? Until an employee leaves and they realize, we could have done better. And by then it becomes more stressful than it really needs to be. So if you'd like a second set of eyes on your process, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you to look at how your team is currently handling onboarding, access management, and offboarding, and identify any weak spots. Talk through practical ways that you might be able to tighten things up and improve those processes. Sometimes a few small changes today can save you lots of cleanup, hours and hours of cleanup, and a lot of unnecessary risk and headache down the road. You're going to see a link on the screen, and we'll post it in the chat later on here. If you'd like to schedule a conversation with me, I truly enjoy talking with other business owners and business leaders about technology and strategy and operations. And if you've got questions, would like to discuss that, please schedule a quick one-on-one with me, and we can dig into that and answer your questions. All right, let's see if there's any questions from our live audience for today. I don't see any. If you did post one and it just didn't pop up on my screen in time, I promise I will get back to you and answer those questions. Or if you post a question after the fact, I will respond in the thread. Thanks for joining us and taking time out of your day to watch this. I really hope that this information was helpful. If it was, or if it wasn't, right, give us some feedback, right? Leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, leave a thumbs down if you're really unhappy with it or you think that something was wrong. Share any information or thoughts that you have regarding this topic. And even more important, I would love to know if there's a topic that you would like covered. Is there a certain technology or cybersecurity or AI topic that you've had questions on that you would like me to dig into? Please let us know. We would love to create more content that's valuable to you. Also, you can subscribe to our channels. You can hit those notification icons to receive updates. Remember, knowledge is power, and we're here to help you to navigate the world of technology, cybersecurity, AI, you name it, right? And if you need any further assistance, you can always reach out to me via DM, or all of our contact information is on our website at itnet.works. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.